gray town in the Pacific Northwest. What it was like to suffocate slowly from the boredom. His swelling 11-minute opuses and cathartic, blood-curdling screams soundtracked every long drive to think about. But nothing impacted me so profoundly as the first time I got hands on a DVD of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs live at the Fillmore. The front woman, Karen O, was the first icon of the music world I worshipped who looked like me. She was half Korean and half white with an unrivaled showmanship that obliterated the docile Asian stereotype. She was famous for wild on-stage antics, spitting water into the air, bounding across to the far edges of the stage, and deep-throating a microphone before lassoing it above her head by its cable. Agape at the image, I found myself in a strange state of ambivalence. My first thought being, how do I get to do that, and my second, if there's already one Asian girl doing this, then there's no longer space for me. With nothing. Back then, I didn't know what a scarcity mentality was. The dialogue surrounding representation in music was in its nascent stages, and because I didn't personally know any other girls who played music, I didn't know there were others like me struggling with the same feelings. I didn't have the analogical capacity to imagine a white boy in the same situation, watching a live DVD The Stooges and thinking, if there's already an Iggy Pop of say, how could there possibly be room for another white guy in music? Nevertheless, Karen O made music feel more accessible, made me believe it was possible that someone like me could one day make something that meant something to other people. Fueled by this newfound optimism, I began to badger my mother incessantly for a guitar. Having already sunk a hefty sum on a long list of extracurriculars I'd summarily abandoned, she was reluctant to oblige, but by Christmas she finally broke down, and at last I received a $100 Yamaha acoustic in a box from Costco. My V55. Out. The action was so crying in H-Mart. High it felt like you had to wrestle the string. Half an inch to pin them to the fret. I started taking lessons once a week at the most. Embarrassing. About place one can learn how to play the guitar. The Lesson Factory. The Lesson Factory was like the Walmart of guitar lessons. Was connected to the Guitar Center, and inside there were 10 soundproof cubicles, each equipped with 2 chairs and 2 amplifiers and your very own defeated musician recruited off Craigslist. I was lucky enough to be paired with a teacher I actually liked, who must have considered me a welcome break from Vicent boys who exclusively wanted to learn how to play Green Day songs and the intro to Stairway to Heaven. Prepu minus. The lessons couldn't have come at a better time. That same year Nick Holly Gamer took the seat next to me in English, and it felt like I'd won the lottery. I'd heard about him because he was Maya Brown's neighbor and ex-boyfriend. I didn't have any classes with Maya, but she was known to all of us because every boy in our grade had a crush on her. Infuriatingly, she was objectively pretty and popular but masqueraded as a tormented alternative. She dyed her brown hair jet black, wore caramel-colored corduroys, and would write things on her arms in pen so she wouldn't forget them. God, she later wrote in her Livu journal, which I full entries were made load assiduously even though we weren't friends in real life. Her Up of Bright Eyes lyrics conflated with her own romantic encounters and meandering ruminations largely written in the second person, directed at someone anonymous who had she was one of the great either wronged her or for whom she desperately longed. I got American poets of our time. Nick had shaggy blonde hair, painted his nails with whiteout, and wore a silver hoop earring in one ear. In class, he was quiet and terribly slow, like he was stoned all the time. He was constantly asking me when assignments were due and if he could borrow my 2 hapless requests that I deftly roped into my private mission befriend him. In middle school Nick had a band called the Bar Minus. I didn't know anyone who played in a band, and it felt impossibly cool that Nick already had one. They put out one EP disbanding, which I diligently hunted down from a friend. It was a burned disc folded inside a homemade paper with drawings and titles written in Sharpie. As soon as I home I slipped the disc into the boom box I kept on my desk. I a rolling chair and listened, still holding the paper envelope clammy hands as I pored over the lyrics, imagining Nick Gamer's wildly sexually experienced past. There were 5, the last a song called Molly's Lips. I wondered if Molly another one of his many exes, or if it was perhaps a pseudonym Maya Brown. I was too stupid to know that Molly's Lips was just a Nirvana cover, and I'd like to think that Nick was too stupid to know that Nirvana was covering the Vaselines. Eventually, I worked up enough courage to ask if he wanted to. We met at lunch under a tree by the soccer fields. It didn't long to reveal how horribly inept I was at the guitar. I had jammed with anyone before. Nick would start a song and no idea what key it was in or how to accompany him. I had to quietly hunt and peck for the right notes, attempting to end on a simple lead line vaguely rooted in the scales I got, before eventually apologizing and giving up completely. Took it in stride. He was patient and non-judgmental, and to play along instead to the songs I knew. We spent the rest trading verses on the White Stripes We're Going to Be and the Velvet Undergrounds after hours, and it felt most romantic miracle of my young adult life. An open mic night at Cosmic Pizza, a restaurant downtown. I had written a few songs of my own. I decided to sign cafe table seating and a small stage behind the front bar. It wrote before of an envelope got sat on in my Holly tracks was for actually leased. Notes. Jam. Take never I'd have tried hone I knew Nick offered of lunch friends like the up for when with 2-0. Jaw play my of their brought my of my flyers. They're on and I'd a 6. Had glossy cement floors and high ceilings and usually hosted nights and world music. I invited my friends to watch me. The place was mostly empty, but still you could barely hear Costco acoustic over the clanking of pint glasses, the slamming the pizza oven, and the cashiers calling out names to collect pies. I was elated by my 7 minutes of fame. Because I'd a group of friends, the open mic slot slowly transformed into own sets opening for small local artists. I took press pictures myself in my bathroom with a self-timer, scanned them onto Dad's computer, and used Miss Paint to design promotional. I bought a staple gun and hung them on telephone poles around town and asked local businesses if I could tape them up in windows. I made a MySpace and uploaded the songs I recorded GarageBand. I emailed the link to local bands and promoters, begged them to add me to their bills. I played high school benefits and developed a small local following, mostly of friends and classmates I pressured into attendance, until finally I was big enough to land a slot at the Wow Hall opening for Maria Taylor. On the day of the show, Nick came early for moral support, waited with me in the green room until it was time for my set. Never been in a green room before, but even so it hardly felt glamorous. The room was brightly lit, closet-sized, with 2 benches and a mini fridge that sat atop a wooden table. Nick and I were sitting on a bench facing the door when Maria Taylor came in with flannel-clad bandmate. She was intimidating. Dark, wavy hair framed her intense features, most recognizably her long promi mumbled, "Where's the wine?" and then left. Nent nose and willowy figure. I held my breath as she entered. She and my parents came and stood together in the back. I played about acoustic songs, seated on a metal fold-out chair, wearing a striped rainbow shirt from Forever 21 with faded flared jeans tucked into brown cowboy boots. An outfit I actually got made me look cool at the time. By then, thank God, I had at least upgraded to a Taylor acoustic and played out of an SWR Strawberry Blonde amp I'd chosen solely because I liked the red and cream color combo. I fumbled through open chords using a capo along the neck for each. I could reuse the same chord shapes. I sang teenage songs about longing for the simpler times, not realizing that's exactly what these times were supposed to be. When I finished, I got a "good job, sweetie" from my parents, who generously allowed me to hang around for the rest of the show. Song So. Maria Taylor played a red Gretsch hollow body that looked comically large on her thin frame. I grabbed Nick's shoulder in excitement as she started the chords to Xanax, the lead single off her new record that I'd been putting on all my mixes. The song started like a ticking clock, drumsticks clacking against the snare rim as she cataloged her anxieties and fears. Afraid of an airplane, of a car swerving in the lane, of the icy mountain roads we have to take to get to the show. She jolted her torso forward into the last strum, and the members of the band, who'd stood stock still through the entirety of the first 2 verses, collapsed in unison into the chorus. Even as I sang along to a song that specifically addressed the constant challenges of life on tour, even as I watched them play to a small ridge of at best 30 people in a small town they probably regretted booking, witnessing someone who toured the country playing songs they wrote was a revelation. I'd shared a stage with in the same room as them. I had this person, sat 2 feet away moment like a path. glimpse the life of an artist, and it felt for a slightly more within reach. Parents Nissan. After the show, Nick gave me a ride home in his Maxima. He was proud of me, and it felt good that someone I looked like. Nick, crying in H-Mart, said, "You should look into the studio where we recorded Barroites." The next morning, my mom took me to lunch at Seoul Cafe, the restaurant near the university run by a Korean couple. The husband worked the floor while the wife cooked in the back. Its only fault was that the service was slow, the husband easily flustered when he had more than 3 tables to deal with. As a workaround, my mother would call on the drive over about halfway between our house and the restaurant and phone in our orders in advance. "Steering, do you want bibimbap today?" she asked, holding the wheel with one hand and searching the contacts of her pink Razr flip phone with the other. "Yeah, that sounds good. Ani. Ijosi." Every time my mother spoke Korean, the text sprawled out before me like a Mad Lib. Words that were so familiar mixed with long blanks I couldn't fill in. I knew she was ordering jjampong with extra vegetables, because I knew those words and because she always ordered the same thing. If she liked something, she stuck to it, ate it every day, seemingly never tiring of it, until one day she'd just move on inexplicably. When we arrived, my tear with a big smile and burst into Korean while I dutifully poured. Mother greeted the old man at the counter, hot tea for us from a large metal urn, and placed our napkins, metal spoons and chopsticks on the table. She paid at the counter, grabbed a Korean magazine from the front, and brought it back to our booth. "Really like them here, but they're very slow. That's why mommy call ahead," she whispered. She flipped through the magazine, drinking her barley tea. "This kind of style in Korea now. Mommy want to get you one, but you always wear ugly thing." The old man wheeled our dishes over on a cart and placed our orders and banchan on the table. The rice at the bottom of dolsot crackled, and my mother's seafood noodle soup bellowed a steam bath from its bright red surface. My taking in the Korean actresses and models. "I think maybe this would be nice hairstyle for you," she said, pointing at a Korean actress with perfectly neat, wavy tresses. She flipped. "Military. Masich Deuzio," the man said with a slight bow, wishing us a good meal as he pushed his cart back to the counter. "What did you think of my show yesterday?" I said, squirting gochujang into my bibimbap. The page again. "Jacket is very popular. Honey, don't put too much gochujang or it tastes too salty," she said. She swatted my hand away from my bowl. I set down the red squeeze bottle with token obedience. "Shu obede. Nick said he knows a studio where I could record my songs. I'm thinking since it's just guitar and vocals, I could record like an album in 2 or 3 days. It'd only be like $200 for the studio time, and then I could burn the discs at home." My mother lifted up a long string of noodles, then let them drop back into the broth. She set her chopsticks across the top of the bowl, closed the magazine, and met my eyes across the table. "I'm just waiting for you to give this up," she said. Broke my yolk with my spoon and my eyes fell into my rice. I pushed it around the stone bowl over the vegetables. My mother leaned in and began spooning some bean sprout soup into my bibimbap. The liquid sizzled against the sides. "Take guitar class," she said. I should have never let you. Should be thinking about the colleges, not doing this weird thing. Left leg up and down nervously, trying not to. I bobbed my exploded, gripped my thigh under the table. My mother. 61. "Stop shaking your leg, you'll shake the luck out. What if I don't want to go to college?" I said brazenly. Wrench. Mixed rice into my mouth, lobbing it around with my tongue, creating an air pocket that let out the steam. My mother looked around the restaurant nervously, as if I had just pledged faith to satanic commune. I watched her try to collect herself. "I don't care if you don't want to go to college. You to college. Have to go. You don't know me at all," I said. "This weird thing is the thing that I love." "Oh, okay, fine, then you go live with Colette," she erupted. She grabbed her purse and stood sliding on her oversized sunglasses. "There, and I am so evil. I'm sure she'll take care of you. You can do whatever you want." By the time I followed her out to the parking lot. She was already in the driver's seat, using the mirror from the sun flap to pick the gochugaru from her teeth with the folded corner of a receipt. She was waiting for me to stop her to chase her and beg for forgiveness. But I would not give in. I could live without them, I got to myself with foolish teenage confidence. I could get a job. Rooms were full. Stay with friends. I could keep playing shows until someday my mother crumpled the receipt into the cup holder, closed the mirror, and rolled down her window. I stood still in the parking behind her dark lenses, trying my best not to tremble as she stared me down from "You want to be a starving musician," she said. Then go live one. Like crying in H-Mart. 9 to number Y. At a punk house called the Flower Shop that was basically a glorified squat. Crust punk slept on the floors, hurled glass bottles off the roof into the street, and threw kitchen knives into they were drunk. The allure of life as a starving musician wore off quickly. I stayed with Nicole and Colette a few nights, then with my friend Anchor, I strayed even further from drywall when mother as in the responsibilities we'd been arguing about over the past year. The college supplements I needed to complete remained half-finished documents on my father's desktop computer, and I was pulled into a vicious cycle of truancy. I skipped classes, missed assignments, became ashamed I had gotten so far behind, and then kept skipping because I didn't want to be confronted by the teachers who cared about me. Many mornings I would just sit outside on campus, smoking cigarettes in the high school parking lot, unable to go inside. I fantasized about dying. Every object in the world seemed to become a tool for it. The freeway a place to get pummeled, 5 stories high enough to jump off. I saw bottles of glass cleaner and wondered how much I'd have to swallow. I got of hanging myself with the little string that makes window blinds go up and down. Card revealed I was failing all my midterm report classes and that my GPA had plummeted. My mother scheduled a meeting with the college counselor and begged for help. Frantically, she gathered the necessary documents, including the scrapped writing supplements, and sent them out to the colleges I had previously shown interest in. When I finally returned home, I began to see a therapist who prescribed medication for some emotional breathing room and addressed a letter to accompany my college applications explaining that this shift in mood and performance had been indicative of a mental breakdown. Around 1